Hello, I'm Vine and welcome to Overthinking. Today's topic is psionic ascension, specifically if we can upgrade humanity in real life by giving them psionic powers. The short answer is no, but the long answer is... Welp, tough luck. As for something that came from science fiction, psionics is 0% science and 100% fiction, as extrasensory perception, telepathy, psychokinesis, etc. do not exist in objective reality. So, it is a closed case for mental superpowers. That's why magic is way better than psionics, as fantasy does not care about arbitrary rules of reality and just is as it is. But let's not digress. Okay, how about downgrading our expectations a little and speculating about upgrading humanity by expanding our minds without gaining superpowers, but just enhance mental abilities? Sure, we can do this as that kinda already happened. Multiple times actually, but progress in the human collective mindspace has a tendency for degradation. So let's just look at these cases and then conclude something from them, starting from the first major thing that shapes the human psyche: religion, generalized as a social cultural system based on faith. So ideologies technically also apply to this definition if anyone is allergic to theism. I called religion the first major thing not without a reason, as surprisingly proto-religious behaviors were observed in animals, which suggests that religion could be with humanity longer than consciousness, especially since social cultural systems are created when more than two individuals decide what values they share are sacred, which is very natural to do for social creatures. Now, religion operates on dogmatic beliefs and is pretty static, changing only over a span of centuries, because if the change is too dynamic, it tends to create a new religion. Moreover, religions operate on every level of society, regardless of any individual's intelligence, as they are typically simplistic in their core beliefs, which is great for unifying communities and shaping them in accordance to shared values. And with this we get to my first example of upgrading the human way of thinking: Christianity and destruction of tribal family structure in medieval Europe. You see, Abrahamic religions say that all people are equal before God, as all souls have a spark of divinity according to their dogma. This clashed with pagan clan structure that often was based on claiming ancestry from gods, which gave them claim to power. This new social cultural system changed how people thought about the function of family, shifting it from tribalistic clan structure to a nuclear one, as in Christianity, individual relation to God was more important than extended family connections. This in the end led even to a formation of early individualism that grew into its mature version we have today. I know I've made some generalizations with this example, but since this societal shift was so monumental, it was also extremely complex and we need to stay focused, because now we will talk about what went wrong with Christianity right after the medieval period. You see, power corrupts in many ways, and in the case of powerful institutions, it attracts corrupt people to it. The Catholic Church at the end of the medieval time became quite politicized and a money-oriented institution. Famous selling of certificates of indulgences being the best example of this. Many priests also did not adhere to the rules that they had promised to follow, growing into a second nobility class instead of being proper shepherds of faith. In consequence, Christianity that was already divided into two main branches exploded on its western side into a myriad of new sprouts. This ended in multiple wars, including the 30 Years' War, which was one of the most destructive conflicts in human history. Welp, GG. As a Catholic myself, I'm glad to inform you that the Church eventually learned from this lesson and doesn't sell certificates of indulgences anymore. At least not to me. Let's now move to another mind-forming thing that is with humanity from ancient times: philosophy. The proto-science that is a rational and critical inquiry that reflects on its methods and assumptions. Since the philosophy itself specializes in rational thinking, it shaped human minds right from the start, but with one caveat. It's practiced properly only in academic circles, and even then understood only by properly educated individuals. A good example of this is Stoicism, an ancient philosophy claiming that the universe operates according to reason. Again, it's a vast school of thought, so let's us focus on one topic from there: emotions. Stoics preached emotional self-control, specifically that emotional reactions should be reasonable. For example, if you got scared by a spider, moving away from it or even jumping away is perfectly within reason, as it could be a poisonous one. But burning the house down in response to one spider is a completely unreasonable reaction and very much shamed by the Stoics. This distinction between reasonable and unreasonable reactions helps to experience emotions without overreacting, but still fully experience them. There were a lot of people in history that followed this philosophy to process emotions in that manner, like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, James Stockdale, etc. But in modern times, social media bastardized this philosophy into broicism, reducing many of its aspects into a mere parody of Stoicism. With emotional control being our example, broicism misinterprets it as being cold, uncaring, and sucking up everything to not feel at all, which is not only opposite of what Stoicism teaches, but also a mentally harmful practice capable of causing serious damage to human psyche. To be honest, masses always have a tendency for bastardization of higher ideas, mainly because the crowd mentality simplifies topics to be comprehensive by the dumbest people in the crowd. So let's go to the third mind-expanding thing that studies exactly the processes like that. Psychology, a relatively new field of science that studies the human mind. And it is actually great, as the progress in the field actively helps and changes humanity right now, with the invention of psychotherapy and other processes to treat mentally ill people. Though we are currently living in a period of global mental health crisis. Isn't this the failure of psychology? No, it's actually a success, because we recognize that we have a problem and we have ways of dealing with it. In any other century, this crisis will be a total disaster, but now, thanks to advancements in psychology, it's only a normal level disaster. The failure of psychology is in the fact that it's very susceptible to abuse by bad actors. And I'm saying that in comparison to religion and philosophy, because those two at least attempt to toggle with morality and ethics, while psychology is a cold scientific field. Any moral restrictions put on it are external, just like in medicine. But unlike in medicine, psychology gives you methods to straight up control people. To avoid any controversial bad actor example and stroke my own ego a little, as an example of psychological manipulation, I'm giving you my series What Your Favorite Stellaris Civic Says About You. In the past, I needed something to start up my YouTube channel, and seeing that Let's Plays do not work, I used the human need to belong combined with the need to classify and categorize, creating a video series that bites people to watch it. Nobody even noticed how much of my jokes were unfunny or low effort, and I've got my first 1K subs thanks to it. Fortunately, I don't have the strength to constantly manipulate my viewers like that, so you can all relax. For now. Circling back to the question of this overthinking, we have three mind-changing forces. How do we combine them to ascend humanity into some higher mental state? That's the neat part. We don't. Combining religion, philosophy and psychology in any way would just create a cult. And cults are prone to corruption, degeneration and collapsing under their own weight. Even if this cult would avoid that, then by getting greater reach and numbers, it will just become a religion, taking the whole effort back to the beginning. So, let's just don't do this and keep religion, philosophy and psychology separate from each other, but with one thing in mind. All of them should exist in symbiosis, supporting each other and at the same time keeping each other in check. Something like this already happened with multiple religions and philosophies throughout history. Mentioned earlier, Christianity and classical Stoicism are a great example of that, as they existed alongside each other and kinda supported one another. Today, psychology gets into the mix, so the circles of mental symbiosis slowly emerge in societies across the globe, and as always, the best one will expand throughout humanity's mindspace. In conclusion, psionic ascension may be a total fiction, but humanity constantly changes mentally. In our time, we are just starting another chapter of the slow mental evolution. That's all for today, and see you in the next video!